Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We'll start in a moment, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah ta'ala, today we're going to cover Surah Naziat, which is the second surah in Juz Amma. So Surah Naziat, I'll first recite some of the ayat, then inshallah ta'ala we'll go through some of the commentary and the translation, inshallah ta'ala. So أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والنازيات غرقا والناشطات نشطا والسابحات سبحا فالسابقات سبقا فالمدبرات أمرا يوم ترجف الراجفة تتبعها الرادفة قلوب يومئذ واجفة أبصارها خاشعة صدق الله العظيم. So inshallah ta'ala, look at the explanations first. So sometimes there are various reasons why different surahs are revealed in the Quran, and sometimes the reasons for those revelations are known, and other times those revelations are not clear. Sometimes the Prophet ﷺ would indicate why it was revealed, or sometimes the Sahaba were present and they would know the reason, and then they would elaborate on that reason. So this surah basically, as you'll see when we go through it, starts by talking about the concept of death from an Islamic perspective. So sometimes you'll find in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He makes certain points, He sometimes uses oaths, qasams as they call in Arabic, to kind of emphasize the meaning of what He's trying to say. Now, the reason this could be is because sometimes the news that they're getting, or the information that Allah Ta'ala is telling us, might be, something that they're not used to and find difficult to believe in. Or maybe it's so shocking or amazing that, it needs some sort of emphasis behind it to kind of get them to understand it and accept it. Or it might be just simply the case that Allah Ta'ala is trying to prove to them of the truth of the matter. So obviously we don't need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to prove to us, because Allah Ta'ala is almighty and knows, but then at the same time, sometimes for emphasis and sometimes to give importance to something, Allah Ta'ala will use an oath to kind of start the conversation off. So you'll see this in other surahs as well. So sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions an oath by certain things. So sometimes He might say, I swear by the pen, by the sun, by the moon, etc. So when people take an oath generally in Sharia, our principle is that basically you only take an oath in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's haram to take the oath in any other name. So just looking at the first verse then, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the surah by saying وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرَقًا, which basically means that I swear by those angels who pull out, the souls of the non-believers vigorously. So the word nazi'at basically means to pull, to take out, to pull. So the word is feminine in its construct from an Arabic grammar perspective, but that doesn't have an effect on the meaning of what it's trying to convey. And gharqa, which means drowning, also means that they dive in, and it means to pull out. So there's kind of a few meanings that are surrounded by that word. So in other words, to get an understanding of what Allah Ta'ala is trying to say here, is that Allah Ta'ala is taking an oath with the angels of death, and it is the angels that actually come at the time of death to actually extract the soul of somebody. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He's determined a time for a person to leave the dunya, then the angel of death will come, and basically it is his task then to take out the ruh and take it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here it's saying that the soul, when the angels are pulling out, is kind of drowning. Now, because the first type here describes the soul of a kafir, so here in this case we're talking about a person, either a sinful person or a disbeliever, And this person, when his death comes, obviously he doesn't really want to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when the angel comes to this type of person, the ruh in that person doesn't want to come out. Now it could be because he or she is attached to dunya, their assets, their wealth, their family, etc. Or he knows that he's been disobedient and doesn't really want to face up to the consequences. So then when the angel comes to actually take the ruh, he realizes now that his fate is tied and he is going to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Prophet ﷺ mentioned that when the angel of death comes to this person, the ruh tries to hide. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that it gathers in the nail of the hand. Yani the whole soul will try and squeeze into the nail of the hand. But the angels are going to basically follow the commands that it's been given. Yani if it's time for the ruh to go back, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take the ruh back. And the angel will basically then try and go into the body and try and extract the ruh. So this is why you find that sometimes at the time of death, people do feel a lot of pain. And this sort of extreme height of pain is called Naziat. So when the soul is being pulled, it is when basically the soul is being pulled out. Now, the question we should ask ourselves is, how do we want to go? How do we want our ruh to be taken out? Because if we want to go back properly in a nice fashion and not being like literally ripped out, then basically we need to make sure that we live our life according to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if that's the case, then inshallah ta'ala, when the angel of death comes, then we'll have an easy departure. So when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, saw the angel of death, Jibreel alayhi salam was actually also with him in the room at that time. Now, it is something that's very, very specific to the Anbiya alayhimus salam. Yani that the angel of death actually takes permission. Now, this is only, as I said, just for the prophets. So at this point, when the angel of death came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam looked at Jibreel alayhi salam as if he was asking him what to do. And then Jibreel alayhi salam mentioned that your Lord wants to meet you. So can you imagine that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was the main point of focus in your life, and you had deep love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then He says, I want to meet you, then of course you're going to be very eager to go, and you'll be in a rush to go, in fact. So in this case, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, pure is Allah who is the highest. Now it also mentions that Aisha radiallahu anha was there at the time. And she couldn't see anything, but she said at that point, I knew that he must have been given a choice, and he had chosen his Rabb to go back to. Ibn Mas'ud mentions that the angel of death takes out the soul from every hair and nail of that person, because the ruh is actually spread out throughout the body. So he is going to make sure that every part of the soul is taken out. Israel alayhi salam is the angel of death, and what the Mufassirin mention is that he also has a team of angels, that he doesn't come alone, but he is actually the leader of those angels. So this verse here, the first verse that mentions the drowning or the taking out by a very forceful manner, as we mentioned, it is related to a person who is either a sinner or a kafir, a disbeliever. So Prophet ﷺ mentioned, when a sinner dies, the soul is pulled out from the body like silk is pulled from a thorny bush. Yani this is how the pain is felt. So if you imagine if you have a nice silk cloth and it's thrown over some like thorns, and you try and yank that, it's going to tear in multiple places, etc. So this is kind of just a parable of the kind of pain that a person would experience in that. So then we got the second verse, which is وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا. So this basically means, and by the ones who open. So nasht basically means to open something. So here basically it means that the angel of death is opening something which is closed or blocked. So ulama say that it is like opening a tap. How does the water come out? When a tap is opened, the water flows out very easily, generally, as though it's ready to come out and has just been released. So here the angels are actually taking out the soul of a pious person, because he's flowing out and doesn't have to be dragged out. Yani he's eager to go back to his Rabb. He knows he spent all his life working for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and adhering to the ahkam of the deen. So now he's ready to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he's actually ready, and the ruh is basically then taken out very, very easily. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in a hadith, "Ad-dunya sijnul al-mu'min." Yani, in other words, that the world is a prison for the mu'min, for the believer. So once a person is in prison, it's hard, it's tough, life is difficult. Then when they get the opportunity to become free, they're very eager to go. And just like that, the mu'min, the believer who's tried all his life to try and follow the commands of the deen, work hard, strive hard, provide for his family, do righteous deeds, etc. Now is his time to actually go back to his Rabb. So he is basically, very happy to go and very eager. So now he's hurrying basically so that he can go and meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then inshallah ta'ala attain Jannah. Then the next verse, number 3, وَالسَّابِحَاتِ الصَّبْحَةِ, basically means, and by the ones who swimming. So as-sabihat basically means to swim. So this is referring to the swimming in the sky. So both of these angels are swimming in the sky, swimming through the heavens, and they take the soul upwards smoothly. Now, I'm just going to elaborate here a little bit, because there's an actual hadith narrated in the book of Imam Ahmad where Prophet ﷺ kind of describes the process of death. So it's good to understand this, inshallah ta'ala, in the context of what we're reading. So basically it says here that when a pious person dies, then the angel of death comes with a team of angels who have beautiful glowing faces, and the perfume from Jannah is on those angels. Prophet ﷺ said that the angel of death sits near the person's head and says an ayat of the Quran, which is a beautiful ayat. It says, "O peaceful soul, come to your Lord, content and happy, and come among his slaves and enter his paradise." Subhanallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us be from amongst those people who hear those beautiful words at the time of our departure. Ameen. So when this announcement is made, the soul flies out. And Prophet ﷺ gave a comparison that is like when a tap is opened and the water flows out. Then the Prophet ﷺ said that the soul is then wrapped into a shroud or a cloth, just like a baby is wrapped into a receiving blanket when it's born. This cloth is also a perfumed cloth from Jannah. So then they take this ruh in this cloth up to heaven, up to the heavens. So when they're going up, because of the fragrance spreading out on the way up, various angels smell this fragrance and they ask, "Who is this?" The angel of death takes the person's name and says, "This is such and such son or daughter of such and such person, and Allah is pleased with him or her." So all the angels of the first sky say, "Peace be upon you," yani assalamu alaikum. Then they go up to each heaven and all the angels say their salam. Then this person is shown the hellfire. So he gets to see the hellfire, and the angel says, "Don't worry, you could have come here, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has saved you." Then Jannah will be shown to him or her, and he will be told, this is going to be your home. Now the angel brings the soul back into the body, and this is basically now for the process of the questioning of the grave. So these are the questions that a person gets asked when they're put into their qabr. So the angels basically of the grave ask a series of questions, which I'll kind of briefly mention here. So one is Man Rabbuk, yani who is your Rabb, who is your Lord? So the person will say basically he is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the angels will say Sadaqta. And this is assuming obviously he's a pious person. Then it will be asked, who is your prophet? Man nabiyuka? And he will answer Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then angels will say Sadaqta. And then he will say Ma dinuk? What is your deen? And he will say Islam. And then the angels will say Sadaqta. Then the angels basically will then make the grave spacious, and a window from Jannah will be opened, and a breeze will be coming in from Jannah. And the angels will say, sleep like the sleep of a new bride. Now it's interesting why they said sleep of a new bride. So ulama have written that the reason they use this metaphor, this example, is that because when a lady gets married, she's very nervous all day that how is her husband going to find her? Is he going to like her, etc. So she has this nervousness about her. And then eventually when she actually meets her husband and they spend the night together and he's accepted her and is happy with her, etc., then she knows in the morning that he will be the one that she wakes up to, and she will know that she will be, when she knows this, she'll become relaxed, etc. And there's no tension in her anymore. So she has this sort of reassurance that everything is okay. So just like that, the angels say to this person that now you can rest, just like the rest of a new bride. And then in the grave, this person will have his companions. Now, what are these companions? These are going to be his good a'mal that will come and keep him company. Then on the other side, the flip side now, Prophet ﷺ also mentioned the situation of a sinner when he dies. So it starts with the soul basically hiding in the body, and the angel of death then basically literally going inside the body to extract the soul from every part of the body. So obviously this is, you can imagine, is going to be quite a difficult task. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, their faces are dark and their eyes are red and their teeth are long and they smell very unpleasant. So this is obviously the first fright that's given to the person as he's dying, that he sees, an unsightly sort of figure of an angel that's not looking very pleasant. And they will now call out, "O wretched soul." So in above, and for the pious person said, "O peaceful soul," or contented soul. Now they're saying, "O wretched soul, come to the anger of your Rabb, your Lord." And the soul is then pulled out, like that example that I mentioned earlier, like a silk cloth is pulled out from a thorny bush. And then once they've taken the soul out, it's put into a very smelly cloth. And it's wrapped up, and then basically every other creation can smell it except for the humans and the jinn. And even the animals, dogs and cats, can smell this. The angels then ask, who is this person? They smell the filthy smell, and the angels basically in each of the heavens ask who this is. And the reply is given that it's such and such person, son and daughter of such and such person. And then this person is actually then shown Jannah first. Taken up to the heavens, he sees what's there, and then he is told that this is what you could have had you worked for it in the dunya. Then this soul is then shown hellfire. And then it's told to him that this is going to be where you will go. And again the soul will be taken to the qabr and the same questioning will begin. And in this situation, even if this person is a Muslim, but because he's been sinful, he will actually end up struggling to answer the questions that are put to him. Sometimes people have this impression that actually I'm Muslim and potentially, I will die in state of Iman, so even if I do die like that, I'll eventually go to Jannah. A bit like what we mentioned yesterday in Surah Naba. But the reality is that, if you haven't lived your life according to the deen, and you've kind of been really, really sinful, etc., not made tawbah and all these type of things, then when these questions are put to you, it's going to be like your mind has gone blank. So yes, you were under the label of being a Muslim, but is your life reflective of living life as a Muslim? So, those questions will be put to him, and he will actually end up struggling answering any of these questions. And as he stumbles on these questions, the angels will start actually lashing him with a whip. Then they'll ask him basically about who his prophet was. Now imagine if you don't follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then chances are that you're going to stumble. And again, there'll be like the punishment for him at that stage for struggling with that question as well. And then they'll ask what his deen was. Now even if he was a Muslim, he will not necessarily be able to answer the question based upon how he lived his life. So if there was no sign of Islam in his life, then the reality is he will probably struggle to answer that question. If he lived his life, with the name of a Muslim, but did everything that the kuffar did, celebrate all the celebrations of kuffar celebrate, observe all the customs that the kuffar observe, and Islam wasn't really his lifestyle, so to speak, then you could say that he's going to struggle with answering that question as well. So then this is where the qabr will then become constricted. So for the pious person, the angels opened out the qabr and opened the door of Jannah. In this person's situation, the qabr will be the opposite. It will be constricted and become so tight that his ribs will clash against each other, organs will be squashed together, etc. And then the punishment of the qabr will begin. Now, if you imagine, we can't really take any real moment of pain in this dunya. We get a little burn or we get a little scratch, etc. There's a little bit of pain, a little bit of discomfort. And obviously the more the pain, the more discomfort we get. So can you imagine that, as soon as this person goes into the qabr, what his condition is going to be like? So there is a difference obviously between the condition of a righteous person and a sinner, and that difference starts as soon as the angel of death comes and the soul is extracted. It's not like you're going to wait till the day of judgment, the hisab will be done, and then, no, this situation starts right from the time that the ruh becomes extracted. Obviously, if you're a pious person, your ruh will come out easy, etc. If you're a bad person, or sinful person, or a disbeliever, then, as described, the ruh will come out much more difficult. So inshallah, I think we'll leave it there for today. We'll hit our 20-minute milestone. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll pick up from ayat number 4 and then continue on, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept everyone's coming together for this dars of Quran, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all tawfiq to observe our life according to the ahkam of our deen, per what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, per what Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed in his sunnah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to really recharge our hearts in this month of Ramadan. Requesting everyone to make dua for me and for the whole ummah, inshallah.